going to start with our positive responses to the climate crisis panel. Our panelists include Lindsay and Mouw from the Center for Rural Affairs. Lindsay is a policy associate at the Center for Rural Affairs based in Lyons, Nebraska. The center works to support thriving rural communities, social and economic justice, environmental stewardship, and genuine opportunity for all while engaging people in decisions that affect the quality of their lives and the future of their communities. Lindsay currently works on clean energy policy at the local and state level and is assisting with rural implementation of Inflation Reduction Act and bipartisan infrastructure law programs. Lindsay graduated from Dordt University in 2017 with a degree in biology, environmental science, and political science. Kate Smith works as a sales representative with Green Cover Seeds. They received their bachelor's degrees at UNL in animal science and grazing livestock systems. And Kate grew up in rural southern Wisconsin and spent most of her time being outdoors, riding horses, working and being with family. Alexus Hansen is a hydroponic specialist from Nebraska Children and Families Foundation. They attended UNL and earned a bachelor's degree in biological sciences with minors in plant biology and environmental science. Alexis' passions include plant sustainability and local resiliency. On the issue of climate change, they believe we are at a precipice in time and are facing circumstances that require systems-wide responses. They hope to use their interest in education to help shape this new age of agriculture, making sure to emphasize sustainable practices and local food security. And Jess Baker is the Director of Special Projects for Nelnet Renewable Energy. Jess is the co-founder of GRNE Solar and started the company back in 2012. And GRNE, Solar is a leading solar installation firm focusing on all types of photovoltaic solar installations. In July of 2022, GRNE Solar was acquired by Nelnet Renewable Energy to help grow the renewable energy division of Nelnet Corp., a publicly traded company. Jess currently leads teams with solar installations throughout the nation and assists Nelnet Renewable Energy's venture capital investments and developing renewable technologies. Jess graduated from UNL in 2002 with a degree in business administration. So, yeah.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today to share with you a little bit about renewable energy and the massive impact it can have on solving the climate crisis. Before we get started, I just want to tell you a little bit about the Center for Rural Affairs work on the climate and renewable energy. We mainly engage on policy at the local, state, and federal level. We work at the county level with local elected officials to help them draft policies for citing renewable energy in ways that are permissible to development. We also work at state level policy, affecting any laws that would impact renewable energy development. And then at the federal level, we really work at implementing policies in rural America that affect renewable energy. So most of you here are probably familiar with the various different sources of renewable energy. Today we'll be primarily talking about wind and solar. However, hydro is also a prominent source of energy in Nebraska. We have about 10 hydroelectric facilities, including the one pictured here at Gavin's Point in Yankton, South Dakota, and the border of Nebraska. Geothermal is another source. We don't have a lot of it here in Nebraska. And bioenergy is a pretty prominent source. We are the second largest producer in the country of ethanol, and essentially any living organism that you would burn would be considered bioenergy. So when we're talking about renewable energy, there's 3 different scales that it is developed in. The smallest of which is residential. These typically range from 5 to 20 kilowatts in size, and these would be the projects you would see on rooftops of homes, businesses, or farms. They can also be ground mounted, but they are intended for use directly on site. The middle-sized development is community solar. These projects are typically built within a community, and there are a few different ways that they can be set up, but most commonly, these are developed and then opened up for shares to community members who can then subscribe to the project. And then the energy produced from the solar can be used to offset their electricity bills. And then the largest size is utility scale development. Typically, these are greater than 10 megawatts in size and developed for energy to be sent directly onto the grid. This slide shows a breakdown of the renewable energy, or just the energy generation in state in Nebraska from last year. As you can see, coal still comprises nearly 50% of our energy generation, so we have quite a long ways to go yet to achieve a pollution-free, clean, sustainable grid. However, I am excited about this 31% of wind energy. I think that's really exciting and expect to see it to continue to grow pretty significantly in the coming years. We have another 14% of our energy from nuclear, and then 3% from natural gas and hydro. As Dr. Martha Durr already explained, in Nebraska, we have 100% public power, and all 3 of our major public power districts have set decarbonization goals. And so I'm really excited about this. We have publicly made goals that these public power districts are accountable to in order to help us reduce our remaining coal and natural gas production to more sustainable alternatives. And has been mentioned, if you're looking for ways to get involved, holding the public power districts accountable to these goals would be very helpful. So to go into a little bit more detail about wind in Nebraska, we currently have about 3,500 megawatts of capacity developed. This is made up of 34 wind farms, defined as those greater than 1 megawatt. And we rank 4th in the US for wind potential, and we'll look at this a little bit more on the coming slides. But I want to point out this graph. You can see that wind really got started over only the last 10 years. Our first wind development started in about the mid-2000s, but we didn't really see it take off until the mid-2010s, and then quite a significant jump even in just the last year. And we're expecting to see significantly more development of not only wind, but also solar in the state with funding from the Inflation Reduction Act. A lot of money is flowing into the state to continue to develop these renewable resources. So in this slide, we're looking at a map of the US average wind speeds at 80 meters above ground level. And you can see through the middle of the country here in that purple and red area, those are the highest wind speeds in the country. We often refer to this zone as Wind Valley, and Nebraska is directly in the middle of this. So you can see that we have really significant potential for wind development across the state. This is a zoomed in image of Nebraska for that wind map, and overlaid are our existing wind farm facilities. The larger the yellow dot, the larger the wind facility. But if you look closely, you can see that most of these wind facilities are located near the light blue or dark purple zones, which do have the greatest wind speeds. So it's really advantageous, to take advantage of our most efficient resources in the state. Also going to take a look at solar in Nebraska. You may remember from the pie chart a few slides ago that solar did not even make it onto the graph. That is because we currently only have about 0.3% of our total generation from solar. This is due to a number of reasons. Solar has not been around as long. It's also been really expensive in the past and has come down significantly in price the last few years, so that's why we're just starting now to see more solar. But it has tripled since 2018, and as I mentioned before, I think it'll continue to grow exponentially in Nebraska. We currently have 70 megawatts of capacity developed, and 28 of these megawatts are at the residential scale, so on those private homes, businesses, or farms. But I think a really cool project that's currently underway is the Platteview Solar Project. This project alone is 81 megawatts, which is greater than all of our existing solar in the state. And currently under construction, it should be operational by 2024 and would provide enough power for 14,000 homes in our state. And there's several other projects like this that are underway or waiting in the queue to be approved. And so I think we're going to see a lot more solar coming on in the next few years. This slide here is similar to the wind map, but instead this slide shows the solar potential across the state. Those areas with the darker red have greater solar intensity, the lighter areas less so. And then overlaid are our existing community solar developments. So we may not have a lot of megawatts, but we do have numerous community solar developments across the state, which I think is really exciting, and it shows that there's a lot of opportunity for community members to participate in solar. So I just want to briefly go over some of the benefits of renewable energy. Most of you probably think of the main benefit, which is providing clean, pollution-free energy, and this alone is a great benefit and the only reason we really need to develop renewables. However, there are other numerous benefits. Some other environmental benefits include conservation opportunities. This is more of a optional benefit, but a lot of renewable projects are being done to incorporate conservation practices, especially solar energy. We're seeing a lot of those projects developed with native pollinators or pollinating vegetation around the project area. And this really does a lot to improve the soil health and water quality and helps with flood control measures at the site. Not only that, but it provides habitat for wildlife and food for pollinating insects that are largely at risk. Another option is to incorporate agrivoltaics into solar developments. This is essentially just combining any agricultural practice with a solar development field. Some common options are solar beekeeping, especially if the site is planted with native pollinators. Beekeepers are frequently starting to place their bees next to these sites. We also are seeing a lot more solar grazing take place. It's a great management option for not only the solar developer, but also for the farmer, where they typically bring in sheep to graze the solar site, and that reduces management costs for the company as well. And then there's a lot of really interesting research being done on growing row crops under solar panels right now. I think this is an exciting opportunity. We're seeing this studied in areas that may be more drought prone, as the shading from the solar panels can help reduce some of that water evaporation. In addition to all these environmental benefits, there's a lot of economic benefits too. There's not only job creation, but also every project leases the land from landowners, and they provide pretty significant payments. These payments can range anywhere from $700 to $1,200 an acre for solar and $8,000 to $10,000 per wind turbine. And this is really beneficial for farmers who maybe are trying to retire or maybe are struggling to keep the family farm going. These are a source of stable revenue when commodity prices can be pretty variable. Not only do they provide these landowner payments, but they also generate a lot of tax revenue. All renewable energy projects in the state are required to pay a nameplate capacity tax at $3,518 per megawatt. And in 2020, this generated $6.75 million of tax revenue for the state. To take a deep dive into a local example of how these financial benefits play out, in Holt County, Nebraska, we have Grand Prairie Wind Farm, comprised of about 200 wind turbines and 400 megawatts of capacity. And this wind farm annually generates $2.6 million. That pie chart to the right shows the breakdown of how that $2.6 million is distributed, and you can see about 3/4 of it go to the local school districts, which is pretty huge for these rural communities that don't have a large tax base to pull from. Another quarter goes to the county, and then about 1% each to townships and fire districts in the county. Another $2.5 million is made in landowner lease payments. This developer has also chosen to contribute $80,000 annually to a community fund. And it created 20 to 30 full-time jobs and 350 temporary jobs during the construction season. So I think this is a great example to show that not only do renewable projects have significant environmental benefits and greatly contribute to solving the climate crisis, but they're also a great opportunity for rural revitalization in some of these rural communities. And I think we will get to questions after the rest of the panelists. Thank you.
All right, how's everybody doing? Good, a little bit more awake than we were at like 8:30 this morning, probably. It's a good thing. All right, well, as was mentioned before, I am Kate Smith. I work as a sales representative for Green Cover. So we are a cover crop seed company. but we like to start with education first, so hence why I'm here helping to educate. Louise gave a great intro for me. I was going to initially ask who had ever heard of regenerative agriculture, but now you all have because Louise talked about it earlier. So we're just going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into what regenerative agriculture is, how we do regenerative agriculture, and how you can get involved. So, yes, the regenerative ag, is that, oh, yeah, perfect. All right. So we'll start out with this photo. I'm sure many of you recognize this is, of course, the Lion King. I wanted to bring this up because I think in the Lion King there's a lot of themes of understanding nature and working with nature. There's even a song, "The Circle of Life." I mean, how better is that? So in this picture, we've got green growing grass. We have some trees over there on the hillside. We have a diversity of animals. So overall, we have a pretty healthy looking ecosystem, right? And that healthy ecosystem is going to lead to a healthy climate. Now, later on in the movie, when Scar takes over and is running everything, we have a not so healthy looking ecosystem. We've got no green grass. We have dead trees. There's no animals. The place just looks very desolate and not pretty. So this would be an example of a dysfunctional ecosystem, which ultimately would lead to a dysfunctional climate. So we see that in our own climate today. This is a photo back in 1935 of the Dust Bowl. That picture on the other side from 2014, a more recent photo. Same thing happening, a dysfunctional ecosystem. And I'm kind of preaching to the choir here. I don't need to tell you all the ways that we can see dysfunctional ecosystems in our own current day, but these are just two examples. But we can heal it. There is hope. So over here on this, let's see if I can get my pointer to work maybe. Well, on the side where you see rain, where it looks much prettier, that's actually a regenerative rancher down in the Chihuahuan Desert. He is using regenerative practices to totally transform his land. You see there's no bare spots on that side of the property. There's lush green growing grass. It's even raining. There's being more studies going on that he can actually get it to rain on his ranch while other ranches are not receiving rain due to the different practices that he is implementing. In stark contrast, over on the other side, we have bare spots, so bare soil being exposed. We don't have as much foliage, so we can't have as much, we don't have as many animals being able to utilize that grass. And we also don't see any rain. And it all starts with the soil. So this is another example. This is on Dave Brandt's farm. He is kind of a pioneer in the no-till or regenerative ag circles. It's interesting because these two soils are taken right across the street from each other. The side with the darker soil, there's more roots in it. That darkness in the soil means there's more carbon there. So that carbon is being sequestered from the atmosphere back into the soil, helping to feed the plants, helping to feed all the microbes that are in the soil. You see more roots there. So he's using different regenerative practices like cover cropping, no-till, implementing livestock, that sort of thing. Over on the other side, where we have a much lighter soil profile, we've got a farmer who's using conventional practices. So your typical corn and bean rotation, that would be pretty typical of Nebraska or Iowa, Illinois. It's not as healthy of soil. We don't have as many roots there. We see less pores in the soil. So there's less water infiltration. So just overall, a less healthy soil. So regenerative agriculture starts with the soil. So like I said before, I want to talk about three main points. I want to describe what regenerative agriculture is. why it's important, and then how can you guys get involved? So what is regenerative agriculture? We talk a lot about healing and building and growing the soil back up again through the soil health principles. So the first soil health principle is keeping the soil covered. So you'll see in this picture, we've got a nice mat of rye. Rye would be a cover crop that we could use. And then we've got this corn growing. So that rye is going to help to protect the soil from wind erosion. It's going to protect from water erosion throughout the growing season. So overall, just keeping the soil more locked into place. Next, we always want living roots as often as possible. In this picture, we've got a pore where a radish used to be. And you'll notice that all the other roots, there's a lot of roots that kind of went to that area. That was because while that radish was decomposing, all of those roots wanted to go get the access that nutrients, all of those nutrients that was from the decomposing radish. So those roots are going to not only sequester carbon, they're also going to help lock in the soil so that it's not eroding, and they're also going to help to feed the microbes that are in the soil. Those microbes are so crucially important to everything that's going on in the soil, and we're continuing to learn more and more about how important those are. Next, we want to minimize disturbance. So a lot of regenerative farmers will move to a low or a no-till system. We're reducing the physical disturbance that we have on the soil. We're also going to try and reduce the amount of synthetic fertilizer or pesticides and herbicides that we're using on the land. And all of this, again, is to help keep the microbes doing their job in the soil. They can't do their job if they're not there. So we want to make sure that we keep those microbes happy in their environment. All right, maximizing biodiversity. Has anybody ever gone on a walk in a forest or maybe like in the sandhills in a native prairie? Has anybody done something like that before? Yeah, lots of you. So when you're looking at the landscape, is it ever a monoculture? Do you ever see like all of the same plants in one area? Not really. No, there's so much biodiversity. So nature loves diversity. Nature wants to have bunches of different plants, bunches of different animals. So we're trying to mimic that with regenerative agriculture. So this is actually one of our customers. He's a potato farmer here in Nebraska, I believe. And he's got a cover crop of flax, faba beans, and phacelia. So you see all those other flowering plants over there. That's adding to the biodiversity. It's going to attract different insects. It's going to create houses for the different microbes that are in the soil as well. And that leads me right into livestock integration. So not that long ago, there were millions of large animals roaming all over North America, specifically bison and elk. And we had these large herds. So the landscape evolved to have these large animals on the land. And if managed properly, these animals can not only help to heal the land, but also feed people. So that's a huge benefit to this regenerative system, is having livestock. So why is this important? How does this relate to what we're trying to do here with the climate? So again, back to this picture. I hope that I've painted a good picture that healthy soil equals healthy ecosystems, and ultimately that is going to lead to a healthy climate. So we've got a little comparison here. We've got on one side where we have the bare soil. It's a more degenerative way of farming. That bare soil is going to be releasing carbon into the atmosphere. It's also going to be evaporating all of the water. So we have a broken water cycle and a broken carbon cycle. With regenerative agriculture, however, we can help to heal those cycles. So you'll see over on the other side where there's a nice thick cover crop of buckwheat. That buckwheat is going to be helping water infiltrate into the soil. It's also going to be bringing in carbon CO2 and sequestering that back into the soil. So continuing to help make that soil darker, help make the microbes happier, ultimately help make the climate better. So a little bit more in depth on the water cycle. So we see on the side where it's raining, we've got lots of green growing plants. Those are going to help to keep the soil temperatures cooler. So microbes don't like a really, really hot soil temperature. They like it to stay relatively cool. So that cover is going to help keep that environment for the microbes better. It's also going to help with water infiltration, so that water is going to actually seep into the ground and replenish the groundwater systems. It's going to replenish the streams, and then it ultimately will get recycled back into rain. On the other side, we have a lot of erosion going on. That soil is going to get really, really hot, so it's even going to deflect rain from falling. I don't know, have you guys ever seen that where you see a rain cloud and you see that rain is coming down, but it's not actually reaching the ground? That's because the ground is so hot. A lot of times it happens over cities because we have a lot of concrete here in cities. So that ground is so hot that it all just evaporates before it ever even hits the ground. We have the same sort of thing happening with conventional farming methods. So that means erosion. So that's going to take all that soil right off of the farm fields out into our streams. That's going to make them turn brown and muddy looking. Not a healthy place for fish to be either. And ultimately, that water cycle just isn't going to happen the way it is supposed to happen. Next, we have a little graphic kind of explaining the carbon cycle a little bit more in depth. So again, on the conventionally farmed method, we've got a big tractor going through and tilling the land. Again, that's releasing carbon back into the atmosphere. We see a lot more inputs needing to be used in conventional methods. So that requires fossil fuels to make those synthetic fertilizers and pesticides and herbicides. On the other side, however, we've got a diversity of plants. All of the ground is covered, so all of those plants are photosynthesizing and capturing carbon that's in the atmosphere, putting it back into the soil, helping to feed those microbes. We're going to have less passes of the tractor because we don't need to do as much weed suppression, that sort of thing. And we've also got some livestock back there. Those livestock are out grazing on a green pasture where it's healthy. They're not in a confined area. They're helping to heal the land through their impact. So how can you help? So I would say start by planting a garden. This is a great way to get your hands dirty, get involved with your family. I will say tomatoes from your own garden taste a heck of a lot better than the ones you get at Walmart. Those ones taste like cardboard. If you've never had a real tomato from a garden, you're missing out. Lettuce tastes, but everything tastes better when it's grown from your own garden. And this is just a great way to start to understand how the soil works. You'll get to see all the little bugs and insects that are in the soil and all of those super important role that they play. Next, you could plant a pollinator habitat. That's going to help to bring more diversity onto your land, whether you've got an acre or 40 acres or 1,000 acres. You can plant a pollinator habitat wherever you're located. My husband is a big fan of free-range chickens. I don't know how I feel about it yet, but eventually when we move, he really wants to have free-range chickens. We'll see about that. But chickens are a great way to recycle the waste that you have from your garden and just bring more biodiversity. If anyone ever has an issue with grasshoppers on their property, these guys will eat the grasshoppers and you won't have grasshopper problems anymore. Finally, you can buy local meat and produce. There are regenerative farmers and ranchers here in the state of Nebraska. I want you guys to go reach out to them. Go to the farmers market, meet these farmers who are using these regenerative practices, helping to heal the land, and buy their meat, buy their produce. You'll be able to taste the difference. It does taste different. There's more nutrients. It's healthier for your body. So I would encourage you to buy local as well. Finally, I just wanted to leave you with a few resources. If you're interested in learning more about regenerative ag, please feel free to take a picture of this if you want to, but definitely check out these resources that we have available to you. And I just want to end by saying thank you for listening. Thank you for all the advocacy work that you guys are doing right now and will continue to do in the future. So thank you.
Sorry. All right, hello everyone. My name is Alexus Hansen, and my presentation is a little more specific. I am hydroponic specialist for Beyond School Bells. We are a nonprofit after-school program that helps educate and give students options for after school. I have been working at the Freight Farm Greenery for about 2.5 years now. And my passions are plants and sustainability, and I'm super excited to take my passion and my interest and connect it to these climate solutions. Oh, the clicker. All right, so what is the Freight Farm Greenery? So the Freight Farm Greenery is a shipping container turned hydroponic farm. It is an innovative, more sustainable solution to conventional agriculture. And it can be implemented in various environments, including urban areas. All you realistically need is water, an electrical hookup, and the space for the farm. And the farm is not that large, it's just like a freight train container. So there are two pieces within the farm. There is the cultivation area, which has the main tank and the air ducts, along with the vertical grow walls, the drip emitters, and the LED light panels. And all of those things come together to create a high-tech solution to agriculture. It uses 99% less water than agriculture, or traditional agriculture, and produces up to 3 acres of nutrient-dense land, or nutrient-dense food in the fraction of a space. The second section within the farm is the nursery station. It has nursery troughs for the plant trays that we put our seeds into, and then it also has the seed tank, a work table, and some other fans. The nursery station can grow up to 4,500 plants at a time. The farm itself is climate controlled and can grow produce year-round. You can pick a specific climate. Right now we have the climate for leafy greens. So we grow a range of produce from lettuce, Swiss chard, kale, radishes, some other herbs, and experimental crops. Here are some pictures of the farm. The first one on the left is the pods as they're being seeded before they germinate. The second one is about a week later once they germinate. Below that is a little bit older. They're ready to transplant onto the walls. And then to the right of that, you can see the panels in the LED walls. We use red and blue pigments on our LED walls because those are the pigments that plants use during photosynthesis, and it wastes less energy to just use those pigments. And on the right there is a picture of full-grown lettuce. So how is the farm sustainable? It has low farm inputs, low energy use, and low water use, and land use. We use no pesticides, and we go out of our way to use eco-friendly materials. For example, our plugs I get from the Netherlands from a company called Grow Foam. They're made from crude oil processing waste, so that waste is upcycled and made into another product and shipped to be used. The company also works to do carbon neutral, like offsetting their carbon, so shipping is a little better. We also use reusable rags, compostable bags, compostable gloves, and other eco-friendly products. We compost our organic waste, and we have goals to use solar energy, so we have a more closed system that uses renewable energy source, since electricity is the energy source that the farm uses. It can also be used as a research and modeling tool for future farm systems that have the possibility to be more carbon neutral. And I believe it takes a combined approach for local food systems, and that one option is not ever going to fix anything, and I think that works for climate change as well. We need a bunch of different perspectives and a bunch of different people coming together to create a system that runs sustainably. And no one thing will be the answer, no one renewable energy source, no one anything. It takes a combined approach. And then up there, I have a sustainability word cloud. You can see common words like technology, renewable, that sort of thing. So a big thing for Beyond School Bells and My Farm in general is education. We have a few educational programs where we reach out to the students and work with them. So many of the important life stages of a plant can be seen at the Freight Farm, and we're able to show kids that. These little life cycles and the lessons can be implemented to these students in their classroom after seeing the farm or in the farm. The farm is also able to supply seed pods and other resources for small experiments for students. For example, the seed in a cup experiment where we have a plug and a seed, and the elementary students are able to see the seed germinate and grow, and then they're able to transplant it onto something else. And then later, as the students get older, we can supply those transplants, and they can be used in school gardens and school grow towers, and they're able to see not only plant science, but innovative technology in hydroponics. We also have the ability to show students with varying levels of ability what we're doing at the farm, and they can help with farm tasks. For example, the greenery worked with the Bay High School and the Independence Academy there, which are 18 to 24-year-olds with disabilities finishing high school. We are able to have them help us in on our farm tasks. They help seed and harvest and clean up after the farm, and they're able to gain these skills and these lessons that will help them with their life and their goals. And then lastly, during high school, we have internship programs. I had 2 internships over the last school year, and they came in, they learned about the farm, they learned the skills and how it sort of works in a hydroponic capacity. They helped with the farm tasks, and then at the end of the program, they did a presentation and a project, and they were able to get a full, well-rounded view of hydroponics and how it connects to science and STEM and that sort of thing. How does this benefit the student? So working at the farm and learning about the farm benefits the students through hands-on experiences, participating in activities in a large array of topics, learning about important relationships between these plants and STEM fields and just STEM fields in general, finding inspiration to continue their education in STEM or agricultural fields, gaining experience for their own career goals, building a strong sense of community and developing problem-solving skills. And at the very least, it is a cool and fun way to learn about science and hydroponics. And there on the right are some Swiss chard and some lettuce from the farm. So back to sustainability and environmental science. Why is educating students and children on this topic important? Starting education early can make a big difference as these students get older. We are able to instill a value on the planet and our natural resources. It helps teach them out-of-the-box thinking and better to respond to the change, and that will help better respond to the changing environment that we're dealing with every day. It provides useful life skills, gives them a good background to begin careers in STEM and whatever kind of fields they're interested in, and all of that would help create a society with ideals and knowledge that we need to create this new system of agriculture as our climate changes and as we become a new society, sort of. And lastly, educating students on these types of topics also empowers them to take a stand on climate change and to be active in their communities and local food systems. The last thing I want to talk about is how the Freight Farm can promote community involvement. I think it takes a whole community effort to help with local food systems and resiliency and climate change, and the farm can be just like a place where that can happen. So it provides a setting for that community outreach to be engaged at. It also provides different materials to different populations in the community. For example, we offer seedlings to promote the development and establishment of local food systems. For example, we can donate our plugs to community gardens, and that can help the farms and the community flourish. We provide fresh produce to the community year-round, either by selling it at farmers markets or to schools, or we have been donating it to the Lincoln Food Bank for the past year or so. And then it gives the space to have discussions and teach about the farm, where we can show what the farm does, how it can help in the community, and how it can help with climate change in general. And then it also encourages students and leaders to be more active in their community. It gives them the knowledge and the power to spread to others. And then it gives people hope and care for their own local food systems. That is all I have, but I wanted to, again, emphasize regenerative agriculture. I'm a hydroponics farmer, but my background is in plant science and environmental science, and I am passionate about regenerative agriculture and sustainable ways of farming and doing things. I think that hydroponics is not the key to climate change solutions, but it is a piece of the key, and it will provide food while we're taking the time to regenerate our soils. Otherwise, it's really hard to create a new system with nothing to fall back onto. We still need to feed our communities while we regenerate our soils. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm learning a lot of stuff, so thank you all to those who went before me. So I want to make sure that I leave plenty of time for questions, so it may seem like I kind of breeze through some of my slides a little more quickly. But I think there's so much value in you guys getting the information and then responding back to us with questions. So I want to make sure we have time for that. But I'm Jess Baker. I'm here with Nelnet Renewable Energy. Nelnet, as some of you may know, if you have student loans, it's possible that they work with you in some capacity related to student lending. Nelnet that's kind of their primary business focus and has been for many years. Between 5 or 8 years ago, Nelnet got involved in investment in renewable energy projects. And what's cool about that is that not only were they involved in student lending, but now they saw a greater need to diversify their business offering into renewable energies. And that's where I got involved. So back in July of 22, my company, GRE Solar, was acquired by Nelnet Renewable Energy. And that's what brings me here to speak with you today. And most of my presentation is focused on solar, but I'm happy to answer questions about other renewable types. And like was mentioned earlier, solar energy is not the whole solution, but it is part of the solution. And as you can see, Nebraska is well positioned to grow in that space. I'm going to make sure, hopefully I poked the right button. So what do we do as a company? We do a lot of different things. We're a bit unique in the industry in that we play in the 4 major areas of renewable energy in the solar space. We do residential, so we can do houses. We do commercial, industrial, so for businesses, things like that. We do utility scale, so we work with Nebraska Public Power District on projects and other utilities throughout the state and the nation. And we also own long-term assets. So what we do is we go out, we find land, we develop the solar, we build it, and we own it long-term and use that to generate renewable energy for the communities in which they reside. I'll kind of skip through this one quickly. Our business overview, we do a lot of different things. We have sales, we do project management, so we build the projects. Procurement, that means we go out and buy the goods needed to fulfill the services. We do the installations. We have teams that are actually out there putting this stuff together every day. We do O&M, that stands for operations and maintenance, so we fix and maintain the equipment after we install it. And we also do long-term ownership, like I mentioned before. So that's where we have that asset and we own it long-term. And really the output is that renewable energy source. I want to talk about some community solar projects. This was mentioned earlier, and some of the projects that were on the map shown in the first presentation are actually some of our owned projects that we have with Nebraska Public Power. One of them is in Ainsworth, Nebraska. This is just a 0.5 megawatt. It's a small solar site, but this solar site is specifically for the benefit of the community of Ainsworth. So we're producing energy at a lower rate than NPPD can sell it to them for, and as a result, the community gets a net benefit of both cost savings and renewable energy. So it's a win-win for the community it resides. The seeding for this site was done in cooperation with Pheasants Forever, with native pollinator habitat to allow the pheasants as well as bees and things like that to thrive. And it's managed in a little bit different way than some other sites that we have. We have York, Nebraska, which is just down the road, about 45 minutes away. This is another NPPD project. This directly benefits the community of York and almost creates enough energy to offset all of their energy needs for all of their community buildings. So that's their schools, That's their public buildings, that's their utility facilities, those kind of things. So it's pretty cool that the community is forward thinking enough to try to offset their energy needs through a renewable resource like this. Again, this is a cost savings opportunity as well for the community. They're saving money by having this at their site. The last one that we have in the state is in Ogallala, Nebraska. It's the most recently energized. This one, if you safely look to the south as you're driving down the interstate, you can just barely see it as you go past the Ogallala exit. So if you're going skiing this winter and you look to the south, or I guess if you're headed towards Colorado, look to your left and you might see the solar site there. Again, another owned asset that we have that we maintain long term for the benefit of Ogallala, the community, and they too are saving money as a result of this project. So that's our Nebraska projects. One that we have upcoming that is exciting is a 12.5 megawatt solar facility that will be located in Grand Island, Nebraska. Grand Island is unique in that they own and operate production facilities, and as a result, we are able to couple solar as a part of their local grid infrastructure. Grand Island is, again, very forward thinking in that they have a large coal fire facility that they manage right now, and their desire is to couple renewables to help meet the future renewable standards required and some of the state goals as well for renewables. And so this project will be under construction starting early in 24 and completed prior to the end of 2024 and benefit the people who live in the city of Grand Island. This one's kind of cool. This is for a manufacturing facility in the Chicagoland area. So it's in a suburb of Chicago. Echo Industries, I don't know if any of you have heard of them. They make weed trimmers and chainsaws and things like that. They're a Japanese company, but we did a solar installation on their entire factory, and their desire too is to lower their carbon footprint, and as a result, they directly installed solar on their factory, and they kind of had the cool idea of doing their name in the roof there in the solar panels, which is a neat concept, and we've done that a few times for different people. They plan to expand this. If you notice, our project only covers about half of their available roof space, and so we plan to expand that in the future. The state of Illinois and many other Midwestern states have very good programs for renewable and specifically solar energy development. And of course, happy to connect with any of you or all of you. And I do have some swag, so if it's acceptable to the leaders, if you ask a good question, I'm happy to pass out some of the items that I brought, regardless of who you ask the question of. Happy to give it out to the group. So thank you for your time. Look forward to your questions.
Yeah, so if you have any questions, I'll run the mic to you and you can ask our panelists. So, okay.
Do you guys think that the economy / the food system would vastly benefit from using integrated crops on mass farming?
Yes, I think that's a huge portion of regenerative agriculture is raising dual crops at the same time. So one of the ways that we're doing this would be like, for example, there are people growing row crops and then they're rotating their livestock, like maybe chickens or sheep, through those row crops. So that obviously you have to have wider spacing on your corner beans, but then they'll move the pastures, the little mini pastures, with the animals in it throughout the field. So that's one way. I mean, people, all sorts of new innovative things are happening, like growing dual crops. Sometimes people will plant like a grazing mix after their wheat harvest. So they'll be able to graze that mix after they harvest wheat in July, and the animals will have feed all the way through like to the winter. So that's another way that can happen.
In my classes, I learned a lot about like agroforestry and like food forests, and you're able to integrate the animals into those environments, and you're not only letting the animals help prepare the soil and the land for the plants, but you're also planting companion plants, where it's plants that all work together to create a more sustainable ecosystem and one that works together and it produces more efficient yields.
I think you guys are the experts on that question, so. Who was it that asked that question? I don't know if I'll be able to get this to you, but if you guys want to pass it back, whoever catches it. Ready? They're soft, don't worry if they hit you in the neck.
They're ready.
Coming at you. You can hand it back to the people asking the question.
To those of you who spoke about like renewable energy, what would you say to someone who like opposed having solar farms built near them or on their land?
Yeah, I can field that, and you guys are welcome to join in. So we do get a lot of pushback from people who don't necessarily want to have renewable resources near their land. But if you think about our geography and where we live, and look to the right or the left of where you're at, and it's very little that hasn't been impacted by society in some way. And I oftentimes will draw attention to the fact that although it is impacting the environment in some way, and oftentimes it's impacting those that directly live near the site, that impact has a positive net benefit to the end user. And again, we all, raise your hand if you use electricity. I mean, we all do, right? So should we do that in a sustainable means, in a better way? I would say yes, we should. And as a result, we need to do these developments. Will it impact people? Yes, it will. Is it better than the alternative? Yes, it is. So that would usually be my answer to that question. Again, sometimes people have pushback for other reasons that may not have to do with just living near it, but we're always happy to communicate, and I think a big part of that is education and making sure people understand what it is, why it is, and how it's a net benefit to society overall. Anybody want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll just add to that it is really important, though, to listen to community concerns. Before a project is built in a community, it's really important to have early and frequent engagement with those community members. Some concerns are very legitimate. There are, however, lots of misinformation out there about solar development and wind development. So I think it's just important to engage early and often.
Question over here.
Hi, my name is Jordan Anderson. What are some of the big, economic factors that are probably preventing the transition to regenerative agriculture from monoculture, especially here in Nebraska with it being an agricultural state?
Yeah, so there definitely are some cost prohibitive factors for regenerative agriculture. More and more, there's becoming like different cost share programs that people can be involved in. Different government programs, either from the state level or the federal level, will help to pay people like to plant cover crops or to do cross fencing in their pastures so that they can rotationally graze. Now, obviously, that can't be the only solution. I have seen through conversations with farmers, it really takes a mindset shift to make this happen. You can't go in thinking that you'll plant cover crops and change nothing else on your operation and it's going to be profitable. It won't. You have to adopt a whole regenerative mindset and be willing to maybe add livestock to your operation, maybe add in wheat to your rotation so that you can add a little bit more diversity, have a diverse cover crop after that wheat rotation. So it really requires that mindset shift to be able to make it economically viable. Do you have anything on it?
I mean, I could go on. One challenge we face in that sector is our society likes quick changes. They want, or like quick results. And changing a system of agriculture is more of a long-term thing. And it takes the groundwork and the time in the beginning and the upfront costs. And a lot of people don't want that. So that it can be a challenging thing, and I think the incentives help a lot. But it's also where innovative technology can help, because it can help bridge that gap. While we do regenerate the soils and we do change the system, we have something to fall back on still. So yeah, it'll be about changing to a more systems thinking approach and like realizing that nothing good happens without some effort and some upfront cost. Yeah.
When you're doing things like freight farms, what plants are you limited to? Like, what are you able to grow?
Yes, that's a great question. Specifically in my freight farm, the limits are, since it's vertical growing, the limits are you can't really have big, heavy fruit bearing crops. So, no like big tomatoes or like squashes or anything that grows pretty heavy because it'll obviously counteract with the gravity. However, you can plant flowers, you can plant leafy greens. If you pick one set of plants that have the same climate conditions, you can grow those plants in the entire farm. We do leafy greens right now just because it's something that the Lincoln community was looking for, but I have seen freight farms grow like strawberries and flowers and other types of low weight bearing fruits. It just can't be too heavy at my specific farm.
I think those of us who live here in Nebraska know well the problem of long-term drought. And I've certainly talked with people who work with the USDA and other parts of our state in the ag communities that we really can kill microbial communities with long-term drought, severe drought, extensive drought, all the categories that are part of the drought map that we see that comes out of our university every Thursday. Our university creates that for the world as well as for our state. It's an amazing gift that we give in Nebraska. How do we deal with that? Those of you who are committed to cover cropping, other kinds of agriculture, how do we deal with long-term drought, which will accompany the warming climate?
For sure. Specifically in my case, my hydroponic farm uses 1% of the water use that traditional agriculture uses. So implementing innovations like the farm that use less water use will automatically be a more viable solution in drought times. But besides that, I will let you guys expand.
Yeah, drought is a huge issue. It has been a very big issue, especially this year. I would say it starts with the soil. I talked to a farmer. He farms here in eastern Nebraska. I just talked to him last week, and he is going to be the only one in his area to harvest a bean crop and not just have it zero out and not harvest anything. And he has been using no-till practices since '02, maybe. So about 20 years, and then using cover crops for about 10 years. So that work started a long time ago. For people who are just getting into this, as we continue to see more extreme weather events, it's going to be harder and harder to implement practices that help to build that soil, but it has to start now. I just try and encourage all of the farmers that I talk to. They're in a tough spot right now. It's really difficult. The drought has been terrible these past couple of years. But just encouraging them to continue doing the work that they are doing, because we have to rebuild the soil. Healthy soil will hold, I'm not going to say a number because I can't remember the actual number off the top of my head, but it will hold a tremendous amount more water than depleted soil. So we need to fix the soil to help with the drought situation. And on the opposite side, we could have an event like back in 2019 again, all over. And we need soils that can capture that moisture and hold it there. So yeah, it all starts with the soil.
Well, thank you to our panel, and how about a round of applause for all the great information they shared with us.